The sound of his laughter cut through the restaurant like a blade. It was sharp, polished, and cruel, the kind of laughter that comes from someone who has never been told no. Crystal glasses trembled softly on white linen tables as guests turned their heads toward the corner booth where one of Europe's youngest billionaires leaned back in his chair, speaking in rapid German to his associates. He didn't lower his voice. He didn't need to. He assumed no one around him understood. Across the table, a young waitress stood frozen, a tray trembling slightly in her hands. He thought she was invisible. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of quiet strength, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Her name was Alina, and she had perfected the art of silence. The restaurant sat in the heart of the financial district, a place where glass towers kissed the sky and luxury cars whispered along the streets. It catered to executives, investors, and powerful men who made decisions that shifted markets across continents. Alina had been working there for 8 months, balancing heavy trays with the same determination she carried in her chest every single day. Most of the customers barely noticed her. That was fine. Being unnoticed was safer than being judged. But tonight, she was being judged in a language he assumed she didn't understand. The billionaire, Lucas Reinhardt, was known for his ruthless acquisitions and dazzling charm. At 34, he had built a tech empire that revolutionized logistics across Europe. Magazines called him brilliant. Interviews described him as visionary. Headlines adored him. They didn't describe his arrogance. He gestured toward Alina's slightly worn shoes and said something in German that made the men at his table chuckle. He commented on her accent from earlier when she confirmed their order. He joked about how certain immigrants should practice their language skills before serving people of consequence. He speculated aloud that perhaps she was lucky to even have a job. Every word landed precisely. Every word assumed ignorance. Alina understood every syllable. Her father had been German. She had grown up bilingual before life unraveled. But after he passed away and her mother fell ill, the luxury of heritage became secondary to survival. She left university. She worked double shifts. She swallowed pride like medicine. Tonight, as she stood there listening to a man worth billions mock her existence, something inside her shifted. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. She carefully placed the dishes on the table, steady hands betraying none of the storm within. She straightened, met his eyes for the first time, and responded in flawless, measured German. She thanked him for his valuable feedback on her language skills. She gently corrected his grammar from a phrase he had misused earlier. She expressed hope that one day he might value the people who serve him as much as the technology that serves his company. And then she wished him an excellent evening. The laughter died instantly. His associate stared at him. Lucas felt heat crawl up his neck. The confidence that usually filled the room seemed to drain from him like air from a punctured tire. For the first time that night, he looked at her, not as furniture, not as background noise, but as a person. And he had underestimated her. Alina walked away without another glance. But the story didn't end there. For Alina, humiliation was not new. What was new was speaking back. Her hands trembled only once she reached the service station behind the kitchen doors. Her manager approached cautiously, having sensed tension from afar, but Alina simply shook her head and returned to work. She needed this job. Her mother's chemotherapy bills were stacked neatly in a folder under her bed. Rent was due in 9 days. Dreams of finishing her degree in international business had been folded and tucked away like winter coats in summer. She didn't have the luxury of pride. Out in the dining room, Lucas tried to resume conversation, but the rhythm had broken. His associates avoided eye contact. The correction still echoed in his ears. No one had spoken to him that way in years. Especially not someone he had dismissed as insignificant. Later that night, as he signed the bill, he hesitated. For reasons he couldn't fully articulate, he asked the manager about her. "She's one of our hardest workers," the manager replied carefully. "Never late. Never complains." Lucas nodded, a strange discomfort settling in his chest. He told himself it was irritation. But it wasn't. It was shame. Over the following weeks, something unusual happened. Lucas returned to the restaurant more often than necessary. At first, he told himself it was convenient for meetings. Then he stopped pretending. He watched Alina from across the room. She moved efficiently, offering quiet smiles to elderly couples, kneeling slightly to speak to children at eye level, remembering regular customers' preferences. There was a softness to her that contrasted with the steel he had glimpsed that night. One evening, he noticed her step outside during her break. Rain had begun to fall, fine and silver under the streetlights. She stood beneath the awning, checking her phone with a look that was not frustration, but exhaustion. For the first time in his adult life, Lucas questioned his assumptions. He had grown up wealthy. Not billionaire wealthy, but comfortable. His father had drilled into him the importance of dominance, of never appearing weak, of staying 10 steps ahead. Empathy had not been part of the curriculum. Yet something about her refusal to be humiliated unsettled him in ways boardroom battles never had. He approached her that night, not with arrogance, but with uncertainty. He apologized. Not publicly. Not performatively. Sincerely. Alina listened without interrupting. She didn't smile. She didn't soften. She simply accepted the apology with dignity and returned to work. But in that moment, something shifted again. Over time, small conversations began to form. Nothing dramatic. A question about her studies. A comment about the weather. A shared observation about the city's relentless pace. He learned that she had once ranked top of her class in business analytics. That she spoke 3 languages. That she had deferred her final year to support her mother. He learned that resilience can wear an apron. Meanwhile, Alina learned that Lucas's empire had not come without cost. That he slept 4 hours a night. That trust was a rare currency in his world. That behind the tailored suits and calculated confidence was a man constantly afraid of losing everything he built. Their worlds were different, but their fears were not entirely foreign. One night, Lucas made a decision that surprised even himself. He offered to fund her return to university. Not as charity. As investment. He proposed a structured sponsorship tied to performance, complete with a contractual framework she could review independently. He insisted she consult a lawyer. He made it clear she owed him nothing beyond academic excellence. Alina hesitated. Pride and practicality wrestled within her. Accepting help felt dangerous, but refusing opportunity felt worse. After careful consideration, she agreed. Balancing classes and work was brutal. Nights blurred into mornings. Coffee replaced sleep. There were moments she wanted to quit, moments when exhaustion whispered. That survival was enough, that ambition was a luxury she couldn't afford. But Lucas did something unexpected. He didn't interfere. He didn't micromanage. He simply showed up quietly at milestones. A text before exams. A bouquet sent anonymously on the day she presented her final project. Encouragement without control. For someone used to commanding outcomes, restraint became his greatest lesson. Months turned into a year. Alina graduated with honors. The restaurant staff surprised her with applause one evening as she walked in after her final results were announced. Her mother, weaker but smiling, sat at a corner table with tears in her eyes. Lucas watched from a distance. He had closed multi-million euro deals that felt less significant than that moment. But success did not magically erase tension. The media eventually noticed his repeated visits to a modest restaurant. Speculation began. Headlines hinted at secret romances and power imbalances. Comment sections were unkind. Alina felt the weight of public scrutiny. She refused to become a narrative of rescue. In a private conversation that stretched late into the night, she told Lucas that if they were to continue building whatever this connection was, it had to stand on equality, not gratitude. He agreed. And he proved it. When a mid-level analytics position opened at one of his subsidiary firms, she applied through standard channels. She interviewed with a panel that included people who had no idea about her personal connection to him. She presented strategies, defended projections, answered questions under pressure. She earned the job. Her first day in the glass tower felt surreal. The same kind of building she used to serve from below was now her workplace. There were whispers, of course. But competence silences gossip over time. Alina worked relentlessly, often outpacing colleagues who underestimated her. She proposed efficiency models that saved the company millions within the first quarter. She led a cross-border project that required fluency in German and English, bridging teams that previously struggled to communicate. Respect replaced suspicion. And Lucas watched something extraordinary unfold. Not a woman he had helped, but a leader emerging on her own merit. One evening, months later, they returned to the restaurant, not for business, not for spectacle, but for memory. They sat at the same corner table. The same lights shimmered overhead. Only this time, there was no mockery. There was gratitude. Before the story closes, take a second and comment the word dignity if you believe respect should never depend on status. Alina reflected on that first night, the laughter, the sting, the courage it took to speak. She realized that sometimes life doesn't change because someone powerful notices you. It changes because you refuse to shrink when they don't. Lucas, in turn, understood that wealth without humility is emptiness disguised as success. The moment she corrected him in his own language had been the first honest mirror he'd faced in years. They didn't rush their relationship. They built it slowly, through shared values, through disagreements handled with maturity, through understanding that love is not rescue, and respect is not optional. Years later, when Alina became head of international strategy, she implemented a company-wide initiative focused on educational sponsorships for service workers pursuing degrees. The program was anonymous. No cameras. No press releases. Because dignity doesn't need headlines. And as she stood on a stage addressing new hires from diverse backgrounds, she told them something simple. Never assume you know someone's story based on where they stand. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are carrying invisible battles with extraordinary grace. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can rewrite destinies and humility can transform power, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that matter. Your engagement helps these messages reach further than you know. Because somewhere tonight, someone underestimated is gathering the courage to speak. And their reply might just change everything.